Hello, my name is Teresa Valente. I work in Investors Portugal, that is a partner of the project Women and Money, that is promoted by Italian partner Euroteam, that is here with Luisa also. So this workshop is under a series of several workshops in blended mode, or only online if it's not possible to put in presential mode, that wants to address women that are interested in put their future professional steps and to increase their knowledge about financial. This project is to the main aim is to transform women enterprises from a fragile to resilient and anti-fragile, capable of having an entrepreneurial approach and financial resource that enable these women to adapt to the difficulties, to make diversification plans and overcome a crisis. Okay, so today we have here with us Pedro Cerdeira, that is a consultant, a business angel, a member of the board of Investors Portugal. So I will let you with Pedro Cerdeira, because I think that will be much more interesting than my short presentation. In the chat, there are lots of information about this workshop, also the website of the project where we can go and see more information about the workshops that will be in the next months. Okay, also the workshops in Portugal, the international workshops and workshops in Italy. So you can go to the website and make a registration to all these workshops. Thank you, Pedro. Thank you all participants to be here.
Thank you, Teresa. So first of all, let me address one question that popped up in the chat, which is why don't we do it in Portuguese? Well, there's two reasons for that. The first one being that we have some people on the webinar that do not speak Portuguese. The other one being that our intention is to record this session and to make the content available for whoever wants to look at it. So in that sense, it's a lot easier to do it in English than in Portuguese. Albeit there's not an incredible amount of people, so feel free to make this interactive as you want it to make it. Otherwise, you're just going to listen to me for about an hour, which serves you well. Meaning that if you want to get bored, that's the right way to go. If you don't, then please participate, which is a lot nicer. Feel free to turn on your cameras or leave them off, whichever way you want. Participate on the chat, just unmute yourselves, ask the questions. That's the idea. So without further ado, let me move on. So what I'm going to address here, it's a little bit of the core of content that I've already prepared some time ago in the past, and we call it entrepreneurial finance. So what is it in a nutshell? It's a sort of a few highlights, if you will, of what is entrepreneurial finance, and sort of try to demystify what all of this Excels that are commonly referred to as business plans mean. They're not incredibly difficult. They can be a very nice tool for you to put together your business and to understand if it is a business indeed, and to make sure that your assumptions are correct. And that's very, very helpful if, for example, you want to raise money and you want to convince investors that you really have a business in your hand. So this is what we're going to do today, very quickly. And this is actually a real life example from a project that I've been involved about maybe 7 years ago, something like that. And these are real numbers. I will not tell you what the project was out of confidentiality, but the numbers that you're going to see are real numbers. And the comments that I'm going to make are the comments that we ended up reaching at the end, and the conclusions that we ended up withdrawing at the end, which sort of made or break the thing and gave us enough insight in terms of validating ourselves to the business plan and then running with it. So this is what you have in stock. Agenda, a couple of preliminary questions that I would like to discuss. Then I will show you the famous Excel. Please make sure that you have your glasses on hand so that you can have a look at the numbers. The third point, it's actually something that investors want to see. Most investors do not want to see the Excel just because. They want to see the Excel as a result of you having done your homework, meaning that you also understand what the business is and if there's a profit in there or not. And that's sort of little demonstration that, yeah, I've done my homework, so I come here to show you. And this is obviously debatable. Some of the assumptions, if not all of the assumptions, are very debatable. Nobody has a crystal ball that will tell you what the future is for sure. But then at the end of the day, you need to rely on something and you need to project on top of something. So that's as good as anything. And at least it shows that you have thought about it, which I would dare to say it's the most important thing that you could do. Also, in terms of resilience, I mean, this is going to go wrong. Don't get me wrong. Your business is not going to go as planned. No business goes as planned. So in that sense, if you have the ability of quickly analyzing the situation, snapping back out of it, and finding the right solutions, that's what really matters for you, for the business, and for the people that have given you money to put in there. And then we'll have a little bit of Q&A at the end. So this is the journey that I'm proposing to you for us to take together today. So at the end of the day, entrepreneurial finance is nothing more than common sense. Together with a couple of general culture questions, I would dare to say. So the first one is, why do you need the money? Okay, so you want money to start a new business. Let's go through the first step, which is obviously, yeah, you've decided that you want to have a business, but now you need money in order to get the business running. It's obvious. If not, otherwise there would be other people that would be doing the business instead of you. But do you really want to understand what is the reason why you need the money? Okay. Most of the relationship that we have, all of us have with money, is determined at a very young age. And it's also determined by the fact that we come from a more wealthier family or a less wealthier family. So in that sense, I mean, there's people that have seen the value of money when they were young, and money was a very hard thing for them to get. So they tend to hoard it as much as possible, and they're very, very criterious at the time of spending it, which is fine. But at the end of the day, money is a tool, much like work. And if you do not deploy enough work when doing a task, or if you do not deploy enough money when you're doing a task, then maybe it's not right to expect that task to be done at the end of the day. So if you do not put enough eggs into the pan, it's highly improbable that you will have a decent omelet at the end. On the other hand, if you've grown up in an environment where money abounds, and if you basically don't care about it, and if you're used to throwing money at everything, if you use too much money, then you're not being efficient. So there's a balance for this, but at the end of the day, you do need the money much in the same way as you need work or any other ingredient in your secret omelet, so to speak. And the other question that's highly interesting is, what is the money for? So is it for acquiring customers? Is it for us to buy a machine, which we will then use to build our product? Is it for hiring people? Is it for doing this? Is it for doing that? So you need to have a lot of clarity in terms of what you're going to use the money for. Maybe it's not a good idea to go out and buy BMWs or a water fountain to put right at the entrance of your luxurious office if you do not have a business yet. But on the other hand, a good usage of money could be, for example, hiring a person which is an expert in a certain field, or buying that machine that will allow you to take in an input, which is a product, you put it through the machine, and you create an output which you will sell for a profit margin at the end of the day. So that is a good use of money. Then the other thing is, do you know what you are doing? And there's an example that I like to use here, and we need to be very, very honest with ourselves. One business that I would never have is a restaurant. And I go to restaurants almost every day, and I've been doing this for years and years and decades on end, but I would never have a restaurant. I have no idea on what is the mystery behind sitting down at a table. Somebody brings over a piece of paper, you point to them what sort of dish you want, and then 20 minutes later or 15 minutes later, there's something in front of you that you can eat. And most of the time it's okay. Sometimes it's not exquisite or excellent, but most of the time it's good food. It's a complete mystery to me. So I would never in my life own a restaurant. I have no idea what sort of magic goes on behind it that allows them to cook in 15 or 20 minutes complicated dishes. I have no idea what it takes in terms of preparing things, how to buy the ingredients, if this meat is better than the other meat, or if this fish is fresher than the other fish, or whatever it is. So please be really honest with yourselves in terms of, do you really know what you're doing? Is this a business that you feel comfortable with and you know what's inside it, how it works, how people work, where you should get the people from, how do you get the customers in, how do you get the customers out? Let's stick with the restaurants. For example, in the Nordics, when you book a table at the restaurant, or at least at most restaurants, you book it for an hour, and they will throw you out after an hour if you have not finished your meal, because they need to rotate the tables. And the only way that they can make a profit, if they have 50 tables, it's maybe to have 3 rotations on every meal, which means that they will serve food for about an hour. They will see 3 people, 3 consecutive cohorts of people at that table, and that's it. Okay, so if you do not know this business, if you do not know how it works, then you have 2 options. Stay away from it, run away from it as fast as you can, or go and study more what's behind it and what needs to happen and how does it work and how you can make it work. Okay. So the other thing is, are you comfortable with numbers and math, and especially business math, which is not very difficult. But you need to be aware that this is a part of every business. If you're not familiar or like it, get somebody that does. And the math here is your friends. It's the math that will tell you where you're going, if you're going well, if you're not going well, if you have a hole at the end of the month, if you'll be able to pay salaries, if you're gonna have a lot of money at the end of the month, which is also another possibility, although less probable, at least in the beginning. But you need to run the math, because most decisions are not emotional, are very down to earth and taken in terms of math. Okay. Is this profitable? Yes or no? Should we serve another type of sauce? Yes or no? How much does it cost to make that extra sauce? Are people going to ask for it? The fact that we need to have it available, does it cost us a lot? Does it cost us a little? I mean, it's all very nice questions that you need to think about. There is no other alternative than looking at things in terms of math and numbers, running the figuring and understanding if it's a good idea or not as much. So the other thing that's really important is your business's overheads or the cost of doing business. Okay. In some countries, or in most countries, I should say, and again, let's go back to the restaurant example, you need permits. Permits cost money, and above all, they cost time. And they need to be renewed, and you need to have licenses, and you need to deal with City Hall, you need to do this, you need to do that. So opening a business is not just, okay, I'll focus on my own thing and that's done. No, it's not. There's probably regulation, there's laws, there's accounting, there's a whole lot of things that you need to pay attention to, which, by the way, could kill your business. If, for example, you want to have a telco cell phone provider, you need a license. That license costs a lot of money. So please make sure that if you want to go down that path, you have enough money to buy the license, because you will not be able to serve your customers before you have the license. And this applies to a lot smaller businesses that need licenses or permits. Okay. There's overheads in terms of accounting. There's all sorts of things, and you need to be aware of this, because it's highly traumatic to find in the middle of settling a new business and after spending a lot of money that suddenly you need to have a permit, or there's a certain cost that you had not accounted for that kills your business plan, and then you don't have a business anymore. One particular instance of this is called cash flow. And the cash flow is the money, basically. I'm not going to go academic on the definitions, but it's basically the money that you hold in your hands at a certain point in time. Okay. So you invoice customers. They will pay you right then and right there, or not, depending on what type of business you have and what type of payment terms you have agreed with them. And you also have bills to pay to your suppliers. So you need to make sure at every single point in time that you have enough money in your hands, or in your register, or in your bank account, or whatever it is, that allows you to pay the bills, and then you manage this inflow and outflow of cash very, very well, so that you do not run out of money. Because if you run out of money, then the thing stops. And there's only two ways that it can end. Either you go and borrow money while your customers pay you, if you find somebody that can borrow the money, like a bank or whoever it is, or you close. There's no other option. If you run out of money, you're done, unless somebody lends you the money. And there's something called cost of money, which means that you will pay interest. So it's very, very important. It's not enough to say, oh, I have €500,000 outstanding from my customers, and I owe 200K to my suppliers. If you cannot pay your suppliers, and they run out of patience and they demand that you pay their invoices, you will need to get the money, no matter what people owe you money, or whatever your customers owe you money. So it's really important to understand that. Much in the same way, if you have a payroll and you want to pay people at the right day of the month, you need to have the money in your hand in order to do that, regardless of if your customers owe you money or not. So the cash flow is actually this game that you keep on accounting for who owes you and when they're going to pay, and you compare it to your commitments in terms of paying your suppliers and your employees and all these people, and you make sure that this balance is positive, so that you can always fulfill your commitments and your obligations. Okay. One other thing is to understand how the tax system works wherever you're based. So, for example, in Portugal, if you charge VAT on an invoice, you need to deliver the VAT that you've collected back to the tax authority. It does not matter if your customer has already paid the invoice or not. If they have not paid the invoice, then you will need to front the VAT money to the tax authority. So you're actually lending money to your customers that have not paid you yet. So if you have a 23% VAT tax like you do in Portugal, it's not very different than what goes on in the rest of Europe. What happens, it's very simple. For each invoice that your customers do not pay you on time, you will need to deliver to your local tax authority 20-something% of that invoice, regardless of if you have received the money or not. Done. So that means, and that ties with the previous point about the cash flow, what this basically means is that you need to have at least 23% more money than what you should in order to make sure that you can fill in your obligations with the tax authority, and then you can go and collect the money from your customers if they end up paying you. Because that's also another possibility, is that they default on the invoices and then you're left with nothing and you had to pay the tax authority. And then you go into a process where it takes quite some time to revert the situation back. But nevertheless, tax and cash flow are really, really important when you financially design your business, no matter what type of business it is. The two last points are also very relevant, which is how sensitive is your business to things that happen? So today, everything is fine. The sun is shining. We have a certain status quo in terms of business. And then suddenly tomorrow, the price of gas doubles. Can your business sustain that type of impact? Yes or no? What if suddenly half of your customers leave? What if suddenly you get 2 times more customers than what you thought you would? Are you able to fulfill that demand from your customers? What if tomorrow you cannot access the products that you need in order to create your own products? So it's really, really important once you've completed your figuring to run a sensitivity analysis and make sure that, okay, maybe if I don't grow as fast as I wanted to grow, maybe if I sell half of what I thought that I would sell, how does this affect my business? Can I still pay my employees at the end of the month? Is this enough to keep on going? Yes or no? So you need to build a certain type of resilience and reliability into your own business in order to make sure that the whole thing does not collapse just because there's a little bit of wind out there. So it's really, really important that you look at it through a critical set of angle or eyes and say, okay, fine. This is what I think is going to happen. How probable is it, this scenario? And what if something else happens and I run out of money, I run out of this, I cannot sell for 2 months, something happens, whatever. So these are the what if scenarios that will give you the resilience and the ability to go on top of things and turn them around and survive and actually make a business out of it. So this is the initial points that I wanted to make in terms of preliminary observations to the thing. Is there any comments? Feel free to unmute yourselves or interact in the chat if you will. If not, let's dive into the Excel. I'll just hold on for a second. Okay, everything is clear. I'm not sure if I should believe in that, but let's see. So here it is. And now it's my turn to explain this whole thing. So this business was a services business. So we were basically selling services and expertise to customers back then. And we had to put together this 5-year operational plan, out of which I'm just showing you the first 3 years. I mean, the second 2 are more of the same. It doesn't matter, but you'll be able to get the mechanics out of it. So there's basically 2 phases to it. There's the ramp up and there's the growth phase. The ramp up, it's the tricky one. Okay, so it's when you start from zero, where there's nothing done. The scaling part, you're building on top of something that already exists. And this tends to be a little bit easier, or at least the challenges are a little bit different. Okay, so what you can see here, I'll put this a little bit bigger so maybe it's more comfortable for you. So
we don't see anything.
You don't see anything?
No, you need to share.
But it's shared.
No.
No, it isn't?
No.
Okay. How about now?
Now it's okay. And all the others PowerPoints, Pedro, we haven't seen. Okay.
Ah.
Sorry.
Okay, so I'll run through it very quickly. So
Yeah.
this was the first one. This was the second one. This was the agenda. These were the questions that I've been talking about, and you have not told me, which means that I need to make a better job at this. But this is the nice one. This is the one that you actually need to see to understand. So again, services business, there's the ramp up phase and the scaling phase. So what did we end up putting here? Headcount. Headcount is incredibly important because it determines your payroll at the end of the day. The revenue, which is what you are selling to your customers. The expenses, which are your costs at the end of the day. And here we basically considered a couple of items. This is different depending on the type of business. So we consider the sales financial costs, a labor cost, traveling costs, and operating costs, okay, like rents and offices and things like that. If you are selling products, then you would have here machinery and all sorts of things and that you would need in order to make your product. These were people that were consultants and they were traveling around and they were consulting for customers. Out of these customers, we would get revenues and we would have a certain cost, which was basically traveling back and forth, rents, and the money that we ended up paying people as salaries. That's basically what it is. Revenue minus the expenses will give you, at least in a gross format, what is called EBITDA. Okay, and this is not supposed to be an economics webinar. You can look at it like this, but there's other stuff that enters these types of concepts. But let's just make it like this for to make it simple. So it's like it's your profit. What you charge your customers minus what you spend, this is what you get. And then there's the cash flow. And we had to consider that we would invoice customers on a certain day and they would only pay 30 days ahead. So that basically means that we needed to have enough cash flow to finance our customers for 30 days. Okay, so we would need to have enough money in our hand to make sure that we could operate for 30 days while we got the payments in the bank from our customers. One day that the customers delayed the payments would mean taking money out of our cash flow if we had it. So that would mean basically that we would need to finance the operation. Okay. So what you can see here, the first thing is that we have a headcount, and in this first year, we ended up saying that we would have a headcount of 12 people at the end of the year. Okay, in December, you can see here 12 people. And we would start in May with half a headcount, or half a person, or a person in part-time, if you will. In June, we would have one person. In July, we would have that very same person. In August, we would have that very same person. In September, we would go up and hire 3 more and get up to 4. And then in October, we would hire up 2 more and go up to 6, and then 3 more and go up to 9, and 3 more and go up to 12 in December. So basically what this determines is our sales. So basically what we were saying is that we're going to start and we're going to take 1, 2, 3, 4 months, more or less, in terms of sales cycle to sell something to our customers, to sell our services. And then we need to get people that will need to do the delivery of the services. And this means that there's here a challenge in terms of hiring 3 people in September, hiring 2 people in October, hiring 3 in November, and hiring 3 more in December, which means that this needs to be prepared. Okay. You cannot complete the hiring process in 1 month. Usually, you need to start talking to people, reach an agreement, make sure that they exit their previous job, that they're available to start, and all of that. And then they also have a ramp-up period. Now, the headcount also determines our labor cost, as you can see here. And then it starts to go up. Okay. So this is not incredibly hard. 1 person in this case costed us 8,000 euros, more or less 8,000 euros every month. So we have half a person in May, that means 4,000 euros, 1 person in June, 8K, 8K, 8K. And then when we put in 3 people in September, it jumps from 8 to 26K. So what we had here was an average cost of the people that we were hiring. And this basically meant that our costs were going up. And when we reached the end of the month, we had a payroll of around 50,000 euros, which is already relevant. It can give you a little bit of a nightmare if you do not control your money and your cash flow right. At the same time, we have realized that we would need to sell in September, so a couple of months after we had started, 14,000 euros, and then we would need to sell in October 24,000 euros and 49,000 euros in November and 70,000 euros in December. So that's how our revenue should go up in terms of the accounting and the figuring that we've done. So we have the labor cost, which is by far one of the things that weighs more in here. And then we have the traveling, because these people were delivering services in other countries. And you can see that by December, we should be making 70K. We would be spending pretty much all of it as it is, just to finance the current status quo. Now, what happens in the beginning, because we were not selling, we had to finance the operation. And the cash flow, which is there because we need to finance these things, was growing. And if you see this last line here, accumulated cash flow, you can see that we needed to have almost 2,000 euros in our hands at the end of December, in spite of having a break even in terms of costs and expenses. So in December, we would be doing 1,583 euros of profit if the plan was right and had any adherence to reality. Okay. But what we had to invest before, we were losing money like crazy. Almost, we started the first month by losing almost 14,000 euros and then 16,000 euros and so on and so forth. So all of this accumulates, and we were actually paying to work in the first 6 or 7 months of the year, and we would have 184,000 euros. We would be down 184,000 euros when we got to December. Okay, so what happened? What would happen in the following year, 2020? We would reach the end of the year with 12 people in 2019. That's fine. And then you can see here 12 people, 12 people, 12 people, 12 people throughout the first half of the year. And we would jump to 16 people, so 4 more by June 2020. So not a lot of hiring, and we would reach the end of the first year with 21 people. So that's almost twice what we had in December of the first year. Okay, so here we're doing 70K a month. 70K, you can see that we keep on our delivery capacity stable, and then suddenly when we jump to 16 people, so 4 more, we go up to 98,000 euros. Okay, and this stays on and sort of keeps up to speed with the growth that we're doing. So when we go from 16 to 17, you can see that we go up from 98,000 euros to 105,000 euros. Okay. At the same time, our expenses, which were constant here in the first half of the year, also start to go up as we hire more people. It's natural. We need to pay the salaries, and we need to pay the traveling costs for these people. So what happens in January? So here we're sort of more or less on the waterline. We're doing, in terms of profit, minus 3,500 euros here in the beginning of the month of the year. And then when we jump to 16 people, we start making a profit of around 9,500 euros a month. Okay, so by this time, we have had to put into the business 224,000 euros just to support the cash flow, or the outflow of cash, if you will, in order to pay for all the expenses. Okay. So by June 2020, we start to make around 9,500 euros of profit every month, which is when our cash flow starts to go down. And you can see here that the first month that we do almost 10K of profit here, it also coincides with the peak or the lowest value in terms of cash flow, minus 224K. Okay, and because we're using payment terms 30 days, so that means that we collect this money the following month, we can put in this almost 10K into the negative 224K, and it comes down to 214. So by this time, and it's more than a year after we started, we start making decent money, and we start covering for all the negative cash flow that we had up to this point. And it takes us almost a year more, you can see here, to June 2021, combined with the growth in terms of headcount, to make sure that we start making money for me. And don't get me wrong, I mean, this is very, very optimistic numbers. I just wanted to answer a question on how do we calculate cash flow. So in this case, it's not incredibly difficult if there aren't any other things here to consider. What you do is, because you receive a month afterwards, if you want to calculate, let's pick here May 2020, what you do basically is say, okay, I've invoiced in May 73,562 euros, but this is what I'm going to receive in June 2020. So what's coming into my bank account is what I've invoiced the previous month, which in this case, it's exactly the same thing. But in terms of expenses, what I have here to pay is, oh no, sorry. I have 73,000 euros of expenses, and I have 70K of cash flow or of receivables from this month. So it's basically what I've invoiced this month minus the expenses that I have this month. So do I have the money to make it happen? Yes or no? If not, I need to put in the money. Okay. Are there any other questions before we go on to the next slide? By the way, it is of no use to you if you just copy the template. You need to do the figuring yourselves in order to make sure that you understand what is happening and that is correct. So don't use a pre-built template or whatever. Do the whole Excel yourself. You will learn a lot more, and you will understand how it varies and how sensitive it is to the parameters that you have here. So if there are no questions, I'll just move on to the next. So what we did here, this is sort of the conclusions that we took out of the previous slide. Okay. So this chart here says a lot about the business, and it comes straight from this Excel here. So what you can see here, we have the first 3 years in there, then there's 2 other years, but in this case, it doesn't add a lot of value. So we have revenue at the end of the first year of 161K, 1.1 million at the end of the second year, and 2.5 million at the end of the third year. So let's go and see if this is true or not. You can see the accumulated here. So at the end, 161K, 1.141, and 2.5 here at the end of 2021. So in terms of expenses in the first year, we end up dispersing 271. On the second year, it costs us 1 million to stay in business, and we're sort of beginning to break even. And it's the third year that sort of marks the point from where this thing starts to get interesting. EBITDA, or profit, if you will, not the same thing, but for the purpose that we want to achieve here, you can sort of intermix the concepts. In the first year, our business costs us 110K to run. And we start turning a minor profit at the end of the second year, and it's only at the end of the third year that it starts to make sense. From the figuring that we did in terms of 5-year projection, it would be by the end of 2023, we would be doing 3.2 million in terms of profits. Okay, so basically what it means in terms of accumulated cash flow is that we start with 0. That's how it always starts. We go until minus 250, more or less. And then this business starts to really produce money like this. And it also helps because this was a consulting business and because we sort of worked it out in terms of modules and customers. We said, well, we're going to have a couple of projects and each project is going to have X amount of people. And what we're going to do is replicate this thing throughout. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Then that means that in the first year, we would have one customer or one project at one customer with this typification. We would get another project on the second year. We would start the third year with 2 projects and we would have to sell 2 more. So that basically means that we would have 6 months to sell these 2 additional ones. On the 4th year, we would start with 4 that we had from the year before, and we would need to sell 3 more projects. And on the 5th year, we would start with 7 and we would need to sell 3 more. Now, if this was, for example, a project that each of these projects was at a different customer, that would mean that we would finish the first 5 years and we would have 10 customers. Is this real? Is this probable? Is this likely? Well, it depends on the type of business that you're putting together and the type of products that you are selling. Is it hard to get customers? Is 10 customers too much or too little? It depends, obviously. In this case, we thought it made sense, but this means that we had to get a customer the first year. We had to keep one and get an extra one on the second one, keep both and get 2 more on the third one. And this is the sort of reasoning that helped us to understand if this was something decent or interesting or not. So in terms of initial assumptions and sizing, I mean, I've been through the thing with a little bit of detail, and you can sort of see here expressed in a little bit more of a bullet list way. So the first sales cycle was 4 months, and it costed us, you can go and see here, the first 4 months would cost us in terms of expenses an average of 15K a month. So our first customer would cost us 60,000 euros to acquire. That's the rationale behind it. We would need to sort of pay our customers 60K in order to get them on board. Then we had the salaries, we had the travel expenses and the sales expenses and all of that, and then the operating costs to maintain the whole thing. And we could look at this and come up to this rationale and these graphics that you see here because we did the figuring in detail in the Excel. The growth assumptions are extremely important, not just from the Excel point of view, because it's easy to come here and say, I don't like this number 182, let's make it 200. Excel is fine, it will take whatever you put in. But you need to sort of acid test it with this type of rationale. So that means that I need an extra customer. Is this easy to do? Yes, no, maybe, depends. Can I upsell my existing customers and instead of making an average of 10K per customer, can I do more? Well, it depends as well. And you can sort of run your sensitivity or what if analysis by asking all of these fantastic questions. So all of this is true if we were able, for example, to hire the people at the rates that we have here. And if the costs were aligned, meaning that if suddenly work became more expensive, then we would turn less of a profit per month, which probably means that this whole thing would not come down to what you see here in these numbers. So asking all of these questions, it's extremely important. And it's your business. I mean, you're not asking this for other people. You're asking this for yourself and to make sure that you have a decent business. Any questions before we move on to the last slide?
So Peter, just a question. Of course, that always depends from business to business, but for small business, micro business, sometimes it's very difficult to calculate the cost of customers, clients acquisition. How can we try to calculate this? Because I think that will be a big problem for the small business, the micro business that have lots of clients with small amounts and not big clients.
So there's two proxies for that. Okay, one is marketing. How much do you want to spend in marketing to get these people to come through your front door? Okay, so how many ads on Google or on Facebook or whatever it is do you need to do before people start buying? That'll give you a proxy. Or eventually, how much time will you spend yourself selling to your customers? And if it's 2 months, then it's easy. The price is your salary for 2 months. Okay, so if you cannot determine exactly what happens, you can always use these two proxies. How much money do I need to spend in marketing in order to get these people into my front door? Or how many people do I need to hire and for how long until they start bringing in customers?
Yeah. Okay.
So last slide, it's sort of the investor's perspective, which I think it was nice to bring it here as well, because what you usually end up doing is you ask investors to pay for this cash flow or this dip in cash flow in the beginning. Sometimes people don't have the money. Sometimes people don't want to put in the money themselves because they're already putting in the work. So most of the times what happens is that you go elsewhere to investors in order to finance this initial cash flow, in order to run the business like you think it should be run, okay? Sometimes the investors will tell you, what if I give you twice or 4 times or 10 times as much as you're asking? Will you be able to scale this business accordingly? For example, can you bring this very interesting part of the accumulated cash flow instead of happening on year 5? Can you bring it into year 3? How much would it cost? And then you need to go here and you need to start playing and say, okay, so in order for me to make this to happen, I need to hire more people, I need to get more customers, I need to do this, I need to do that. This costs this amount of money, this costs that amount of money. So can I do this? Maybe yes, maybe no. What happens to the accumulated cash flow? In this case, what we would need would be 224K in order to finance the biggest dip in terms of cash flow. Okay. Can we do it faster? Can we do it slower? It basically depends. But this is usually why people go out and ask investors to throw in the money. And from the outside, what is relevant is sort of answer these questions that are here. Did you pass the tests? So do you understand what are the risks that affect your business? Yes or no? Can you understand what's the sensitivity and resilience of your business? If suddenly you run out of product in order to resell, how does this affect you? What if suddenly you cannot hire any more people? And so on and so on and so forth. So from the investor's point of view, what they will ask you is, okay, so imagine that you're asking me for these 225K. So what will I get in return? Is this an interesting investment for me? I give you 224K, and what do I get at the end of the day? How does it compare to eventually other alternatives that I have, like putting it in a bank and receiving an interest rate out of it? So this is what's usually on an investor's mind when looking at the project. What is my return? What's in it for me? And that's it from my side. I mean, I have no other questions or comments. The floor is yours. Anything that you would like to ask, please go straight ahead.
So I have another question, because when we think in this small business, this micro business, how and thinking in the crisis of COVID and the world and things like that, how can we put in a financial plan a safeguard for external factors if we don't know these external? It's important to put there. How can we do it?
Short answer, you can't. Okay, so
Yeah.
I mean, you could plan for an alien invasion if you want, but the probability of something like that happening, it's not very big. By the way, the probability of a pandemic was not very big as well. Okay, so sometimes things happen and there's no way around it. On the other hand, you can tweak and you can plan for other more probable types of things. So price of gas, for example. Do you think it will go down to less than €1 per liter? I don't think so. Should it go up? Probably. By how much? I mean, use 25%, 30%, 100%, up to you. You're the one that's running the sensitivity analysis, okay? So you can come up with the typical thing is to come up with 3 scenarios. Like, this is a very positive scenario, everything goes well and all is rosy and we'll sell like hell. This is a very negative scenario, alien invasion and grasshoppers and things all over the place and zombie attack and this and that. And then probably the reality is something in the middle. But the short answer is it's the one that you feel comfortable with.
Thank you, Pedro. So I don't know if any participants wants. Luisa, you are with us.
Yes, I've been following. I found it very interesting. Absolutely. I think it's very useful. And the only thing I was considering useful and necessary to do, and I was really following with a lot of interest. And I was thinking that most of the time, the most difficult part for our target group is to imagine. They are very good in imagining the costs, the expenditures, but not as much as imagining how much they're going to invoice their clients or how much their revenue is going to be. So that's a very difficult exercise. And I liked your answer to start considering what they intend to earn in terms of wage if they consider themselves as an employee, and also measure time and marketing expenses. That's interesting. But I really think that's the very difficult part, because they feel that, and that's probably the weakness of the projects, when they do not really know very well who their clients are and what are their opportunities and real potential in terms of selling. So I think that's an exercise there in which we really have to support them. And I believe this is what you probably do as an investor, try to understand if that part of the exercise is done correctly.
Do you know what's the short answer for getting around that?
Yeah, tell me.
Try it, because incredibly, most people do not try to sell things until they think, okay, so I'm ready to start, I'm going to go and sell. And usually it goes wrong.
Yeah.
Because this is too expensive. Nobody will buy this from me. Or this is not interesting for anybody. So wrong value proposition. So if you start before and try to sell it, even if you don't have it, you solve a lot of that problem.
You know, that's so interesting, because when we have people coming in asking for help in starting their business, Pedro, I can tell immediately those who are going to do it and those who are not going to do it. I don't know if that's the same for you, but because those who are going to do it, just do it. And they are incredible.
And then the others talk about it.
Yes. I have an example which is always in my mind. There is this lady coming from, she was coming from South America. I don't remember if it was Colombia or Ecuador. And she wanted to do a business in jewelry, not jewelry, but she wanted to sell jewels made with tagua, which is a plant from South America. And she had lots of problems because she had problems with her permission to stay in Italy. She had problems with she didn't have a salary, so she was struggling with everything. She opened a store and she started producing and she started selling, and it was a success. But she was doing it without asking. We were supporting, but she was doing before we could tell her. So she was, and I remember that case because she was really an entrepreneur in my, in the real sense of it. And she was a success. And just do it, you're right. And sell. Yeah. I thought it was very interesting. It's very, very interesting. And even if it's scary, because if you are not well acquainted with financial things, it's scary, but I think it's you have to stick to it and do it and do it and do it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. That was very nice. So your VAT is 23%. Ooh. Well, our VAT is 22, so it's not far from there, but it's a lot anyway. And when you say you have to pay, because you consider to pay your VAT every month.
Well, then you get into the nitty-gritty details.
Okay, no, I'm just curious.
There's a simplified regime where you pay it every 3 months until you up to a certain level in terms of invoicing. But
okay.
On cruising speed and altitude in a decent business, you're paying monthly.
You're paying monthly. Okay. Yeah, it's the same here. Exactly the same. Well, the VAT is European. Yeah.
Yeah, in the European Union, it's not that far apart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, that's good. Okay, I'm fine. If you don't have other questions, I think it was absolutely very interesting, very nice. Congratulations.
So I don't know if there are any other questions. The participants normally don't participate with questions and all this, but Pedro is still here. So if you want to speak with Pedro, you have these opportunities, 2 minutes, because we need to close this training. All this recording, I want also to explain that the recording and all the training materials that are behind this online session will be very soon available on the website and also in the learning platform. We have all the emails of the participants that have made the registration, and will send, because I have had today several emails asking a message asking for the recording and the materials of this session. So we'll send all, okay, as soon as possible. We need to make the editing and all these questions, but very soon we will send it. So if you don't have questions, I will thank you very much, Pedro, and all participants, and Luisa to be here, because you are in Italy, but now the Zoom let us to be very close. And Pedro Cerdeira, thank you very much for your knowledge here with us. So see you, bye. Thank you.